Ultimate Movie Survival Guide podcast coming out at you. This is episode number 11. We are surviving one of the best, perhaps top 10 movies ever, franchises ever made, ever developed, ever to hit theaters, for real. Planet of the Apes. Man, we're talking like came out in 68 and they're still making new versions of it all the way up into the 21st century.
It's an incredible series. It's epic to think who might have been the pets after all.
Today we're surviving Planet of the Apes, and we're asking you, the listeners, would you survive the Planet of the Apes franchise, the movie, to be in that situation? How would you handle being pets? How would we have monkeys in cages? How would you handle being in a cage fed like portions and people throwing fruit? And you got like a big water thing around you to keep you from escaping.
That'd be the worst ever.
Right. Have you ever gone to the zoo and looked at it from a different perspective of, wow, these animals are amazing, they're exotic, but then thought, wow, they are so trapped. This is all they have, is that little bit of space. And then ask yourself what it would be like to be trapped in a zoo and be on display, to be the other way around where monkeys are tracking you down and putting you in a cage. To take our listeners back to the beginning, the original, there was the astronauts that were shot up into space, and then they came down into the planet, and then they found that the planet was overrun and controlled by the apes, and they were put on display like animals in a zoo and treated like host of parasites. Do you remember the original, Chris?
Oh, yeah, I love it. I've been a fan since I was a child because of something. You don't believe it or not, I saw my grandma watch, and so that's where I picked it up from, because it used to be a TV series as well, and so that's where I picked it up. I watched it I watched it with my grandma, and then watched the movie from there, and loved it.
Steve, Planet of the Apes. You've seen it when it originally came out, all the way through all the different like versions and twists that they've turned out through it. But going back to the original, what do you think about that? Like, isn't that an interesting twist that you would come into another dimension and where you are the hunted?
That is just off the charts. I mean, talk about flipping roles. Now you're the subservient, menial creature that's surprised you can talk. Yeah, the conceptual flip would really mess with your mind. Then you get stuck in a cage. Oh, that'd be the worst.
To think about, what if caveman wasn't the smartest and monkeys actually were smarter? If they would have flipped it around and maybe the monkey would have ate the mushroom first and been the one in charge.
Yeah, I mean, with the opposable digit, anything's possible. We're lucky we led the split.
Did you have a scenario for us, Steve, on this?
Well, I mean, let's say, worst case, you end up as a trophy piece in the personal museum of some oligarch monkey, ape of the future. It's a gilded cage. They're going to keep you fed and safe and warm because, hey, you're an object of great worth. Damn. How do you get out of there? Wouldn't you want to get out of there? I mean, I'd be dying to escape eventually, and anything would be better than sitting that. How would you deal with that? Would you hang out and say, I'm going to live as long as I live, and I might as well be fat?
So first, let's take just a moment for the audience and the listener to think about that. What would you do? You're captured, you're thrown in a cage. Would you just sit there and be the parrot and eat and do whatever the master says and be the pet and survive? Or would you try to get out of there and be disobedient and fight? Chris, I want to let you answer that one first.
Let's fight, because that's not the way it's supposed to be. You know, we know we're in a different dimension, but that's not the way things are to us, right? So let's try to turn it back to a human world.
So there's only 3 of us. You're going to try to fight and you're going to be the bad pet?
Yeah. Yep.
You know, honestly, I'm thinking about it. Like, what would you do? You got me thinking. I'm in a cage. I'm being fed. I'm being like fattened up. I'm on display. Do I want to just sit in there and live out my years like a turtle in a 10-gallon aquarium? I would be super. I would plan it. I would study, and I would be super patient, and I would like learn everything, and I would go like along with the program for until I knew like every nook, every cranny, till I knew every schedule, and then to where they would even let me like out without a leash or whatever.
You're not allowed to learn.
You know what I mean? No, you just got to be quiet and dumb and pay attention.
Yes.
And patient. You have to be patient.
Observe.
You have to observe everything. You have to know the schedule. You have to be obedient. And you just have to wait for the right moment. Because if you just try to flee without having a plan, you're going to get caught. But if you devise a plan, if you learn the exits, if you learn the routine, get in good with a guard.
Learn the cracks behind the walls.
And most importantly, them not fear you escaping or them not be concerned with you doing anything. You know what I mean? I think that's the most important. You know, somehow you're going to have to build and earn their trust.
All right.
You know, once you accomplish that, I think you're good. So I think you'd have to do that first. And then plan your escape. And when you escape, you just have to be dedicated and go. Because I don't think they would be very nice to you. I think they put like a shock collar on you. Or they would, you'd be the whipping boy.
Right.
Yeah, they'd make you dance.
I'd be interested to know what they would do to you for not being obedient or domesticated.
Whew. I'm going to say they would punish you, and probably something high tech.
Because you're going to be in that little tiny cage. They're going to feed you, but I don't know, Chris. Tell me, like, you think that you'd have a fighting chance? Like, how would you fight these guys?
It would definitely have to be hand-to-hand combat with these guys because that's what they would know. You know, that's what their soldiers know. So, but, you know, fight fire with fire.
Steve, to turn your question back on you, what would you do if you're in the cage and they're demanding your obedience?
Hey, I'd probably get my ass whooped hard, but eventually I would comply and then go underground and be stealthy and pay attention and look for that one chance to escape and get into the cracks inside the house. Once you got into the background, you'd be out of sight and out of mind. But I don't know. Whew. I'd be eventually wanting out.
Planet of the Apes. So moving into like the next parts of the movies, my favorite one was, well, actually I enjoy them all, but I more enjoyed where they were working in the laboratory and the apes escaped and went across the bridge.
Oh, that was a good one.
And they fought and were
Yeah,
like
that
flipping
one
cars.
Caesar.
And Caesar. I was really laying it. I could see that one actually happening. What do you think, Chris? You think that apes could take over and like get out and tell us no and be smart?
Yeah, do you remember that all those scenes in the laboratory? Why can't that be happening right here, right now, you know? Today in some secret laboratory, you know? And I think about it, yeah. It could happen, you know, because we got brilliant scientists that can do and make chemicals all day long, you know.
What do you think, Steve? Do you think we got a laboratory going on and this is already happening? Or could be?
Well, I guess I'm going to say, add the caveat, never say never, but I hope not. But if you've thought of it, if it's ever crossed any human living being's mind, anything at all, it's probably out there happening. Somebody will have done it or is in the process of doing it. So, yeah.
I think that a lot of these things are based off of like real events, and people just like take it and turn it into a really twisted, awesome story and sell it to Hollywood. So I think all this is totally possible.
There's often a basis in fact behind the start of all these stories.
There's been monkeys that know sign language, monkeys that can paint. Where I'm from in Loveland, Ohio, we had a monkey named Sam that was on the Leveland bike trail.
I
And he,
need Sam.
he could use a lighter. He would smoke. He used to be owned by a biker gang before my grandpa got him. And he ate watermelon. He could open up a Coke. He would use a cigarette lighter, light himself a cigarette, and then he would give the lighter back to you.
Oh, wow.
He had a
You could
TV.
hand him smokes. He pulled out of the pack.
Yeah, he pulled just one out of the pack. You know, he was a really super smart, very knowledgeable guy. And so, like, I think that they could totally learn, and if given more like insight and taught things, that then they would teach themselves. You know what I'm saying? And be like a whole nother civilization.
It's entirely possible.
Chris, what's your favorite? You really hyped about Planet of the Apes. Share with everybody some of your favorite stuff about it.
Well, the whole idea behind it, you know, the way we treat things and the way we take things for granted, you know, we do it every day, and a lot of times we know we're doing it, and nothing stops that behavior, and that's what this movie's about, you know. Because what if that did happen? What if that's the way it was, you know? It'd be terrible in our world, in our view, in our eyes, you know. So,
Steve, you were pretty hyped up about this one, Planet of the Apes. But throughout the movie franchises, what's your favorite kind of stuff about the subject and about the movie itself?
It's just thought provoking, you know. Again, you like, hey man, I'd hate to be a pet if they treated me like that. It was the dialogues, the stereotypes were all so classic and clear cut. It's just, you know, total flip about role play, and you know, I wouldn't want to be there any length of time. But the concept and how it was done was great.
Do you think it's possible in a parallel universe that apes control humans and use us like animals at the zoo?
Anything is possible out there in one dimension or another. Cats probably are the freaking dominant species somewhere, I'm sure.
All right, Steve, for our listeners, how are they going to survive? Give them some pointers in case it ever happens and they're in Planet of the Apes scenario.
Got to dig into the cracks of the walls, out of sight and out of mind. You know, work within the system. Keep out of danger.
Chris, tell them, how are they going to survive Planet of the Apes?
you're going to have to learn a lot of close quarters combat, I think. You know, handguns, hand-to-hand combat. And that's how we're going to take care of them. And I think it's one by one and just fighting.
Guys, Planet of the Apes. You're going to have to learn hand-to-hand combat, learn to use a weapon, like, trust no one, but strengthen numbers. Mankind's going to have to come together. And the last people that, you know, you're going to have to fight. And if they do capture you, I would say probably cooperate and then learn and study how to escape. Learn and study their system and, like, go along with the system. That way they don't, like, beat you and torture you and at least, like, treat you decently. That way you could get away. Because at that point in time, you're a prisoner of war. You know what I mean? And they're going to hold you. They're going to put you in a cage. You know, you're going to be at, like, the zoo. You're going to have to, like, learn things to get out. You're like the penguin at display. And then, you know, you have to fight.
Catch the fish.
But you have to be smart and choose which one you fight. In closing, Chris, what you got for them?
Go out. If you can find the TV series, watch the TV series. They're very rare and hard to find, but they're worth it. But and if you can't, start at the very first movie and watch all the ones, even the new ones. Watch them all, and let them make you think. Keep a clear mind, so that those questions will come into your mind. Just have fun with them.
Steve, quickly. Planet of the Apes, tell them. Go get it, watch the series.
You're going to love Planet of the Apes again and again and again. Start with number one, work your way up, do an old school weekend binge with them. Can't go wrong. Always a classic, always thought-provoking. Hey, the flip side's always something you gotta think about.
You guys heard it first, Surviving Planet of the Apes. Tune in, more to come.